with your indulgence, I'd just like to say a couple of words on the budget process tonight. We have a large group of interested people here, and as we all know, this promises to be a difficult year, so just for the edification of everybody, I'd like to briefly review what the budget process is and what we're going through and what we're in the midst of. And we're working up, I'll start kind of at the end of the process, we're working up to the annual town meeting, which by our charter must be held on one of the first 7 days in May. We cannot change that. After the town meeting, we go to a referendum, which has to be held 7 to 15 days after the town meeting. And if that referendum approves the budget, which some years it does and some years it doesn't, we then set the tax rate within 15 days of that day. And I tell you that because this year we know that the state funding is all over the lot. We don't know where we're coming, but we are still bound by those dates by our town charter. Where we are tonight, we're in the midst of our budget hearings, and by our charter, the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance conduct joint hearings for each agency departments, and all budgets falling under the direction of a board or commission shall be presented at the joint hearings by the board or commissioner chair, which in this case this evening is Mr. Kingston. After we conclude our hearings, and this is the last of 5 that we had in the month of February, the next step will be that the Board of Selectmen will meet and deliberate, as they do every year, sometime within the next week or so, and they will then make recommendations to the Board of Finance. The Board of Selectmen gives to us, and then we will deliberate, and we will arrive at a budget. And it may be a preliminary budget, because we will then set, after our deliberations, which is sometime in the first or second week of March, we will then set a date for a public hearing. And that public hearing will be held towards the end of March. All right. Mr. Rowe, you want to say something?
I'd just like to make some comments. Many of you people in the audience, I don't know you. Some of you have come here for the first time during our budget deliberation this year. And I think you should be aware of the state of the town. We're about $500,000 to $600,000 in lost revenue this year. We have about 100 foreclosures in the town. We're in dire financial straits. Next year's revenue projections are worse than this year. We may be off close to $1 million next year. So while we're looking at this budget, this is not a gotcha situation where we're against education. We're looking at numbers, hard numbers, and explanations and rationalization of those numbers. That's our job. Last year we asked for transparency in the budget. This year we have some of the same questions that we had last year, because there are some real serious issues that we see in numbers that we may or may not agree with. So when you hear the questions we're going to ask, again, it's the process of getting to the bottom line, making sure that we have the proper numbers to make a proper decision on how we're going to fund education as well as the rest of the town services. So please listen carefully and don't form any judgments about we're anti-education or pro-education until you hear the full scenario. Thank you.
Mr. Kingston, you can begin your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Calderon. Gentlemen, ladies, I want to start off by putting our budget into the context that we have been presented with and form the basis of our deliberation. In order to fund our programs in a status quo manner, meaning same people with the contractual raises, the same supplies, the same level of health insurance, we calculated that it would involve a 4.14% increase going forward. We certainly are well aware, as Mr. Roden pointed out, that that is absolutely unacceptable in the current economic climate facing our town, our state, and our country. We took that and we, in consultation with the administration, looked at cuts. They came back with a proposal, the superintendent's proposal, of a 2.45% increase. The Board of Education felt that that was a step in the right direction, more than a step. It involved significant cuts, but it was not sufficient. So we, again, in consultation with the administration and the business office, looked at where we could cut, and our final budget that we passed in our last board meeting represents a 1.68% increase. Now, how did we get here from the 4.14 to the 1.68? First of all, we are reducing 10 full staff members cut from current staffing. These are not vacant positions. They are actual decreases in headcount, and that accounts for $496,333 in salaries that we are not proposing to spend in the upcoming year. All administrators, including the central office, have agreed to take 5 furlough days without pay in 2009-2010. And this represents a further decrease of $38,600 in negotiated salaries. We are also eliminating 0.5 administrators from current staffing, and this represents a further $50,000 cut in the salary account. The superintendent has requested that all non-union employees take 5 furlough days in 2009-2010, and all non-union employees have agreed for these 5 furlough days, and this represents an additional $11,800 salary savings. The administration renegotiated our transportation contract with First Student, and they have been more than receptive. We had a 5% contractual increase, and they agreed to waive that and have 0 increase for the next year. And that represents an additional savings of $62,157 from next year's budget. The administration locked in diesel fuel price for 2009-2010 at $2.38 a gallon. And this was better than the school purchasing consortium that had locked in just previously at $2.45. This represents a decrease of $71,700 from this year's budget to next year's. The Board of Education has adopted a new prescription drug provider as part of our health insurance program, which represents another additional decrease of $75,000 from the current year's budget. All school supply budgets cut below current funding levels, and this represents an additional $16,475 cut from the budget. We've proposed an early separation incentive program with teachers and secretaries to eliminate positions and decrease salaries. It's too early to say how this is going to turn out. The deadline for taking advantage of this would be March 16th. But we have plugged in a number that we think is appropriate and most likely, and that will come out of the contingency salary line. The superintendent has met on 3 occasions with each bargaining unit seeking concessions. And as of this date, we have met a brick wall. Only the administrators have made salary-related givebacks. The biggest obstacle that we've faced this year is an incredible 15% projected increase in our health insurance expenses. This was totally unacceptable, was rejected. The plan came back with a 12.66% increase, which was also rejected by the administration. And the health insurance is going out to bid. You have a timeline of when those bids will be received, and I believe it's in April, the final. Finally, the Board of Education went out to bid for health insurance. That's in your budget book. Some of the uncertainties, as Mr. Gallagher alluded to, are our educational cost sharing grant from the state, as well as our excess cost funding for special education. These are not have not been provided yet by the state. We made our best possible estimate, and that is reflected in our budget. Some notable numbers that you'll see in your budget. The increase to the salary account after all is said and done, contractual increases and headcount decreases, it's an increase of 0.53%. The increase to the benefits account, we pegged at 10.16%, and the lion's share of that is projected health insurance costs, but there are other costs that go into that, and that represents the lion's share of the increase, and that's $612,000, almost $613,000. Purchase of professional services is set in the budget to decrease 7.67%, or $41,000. Purchase property service declines 4.6%, or $25,000. There's some minimal other materials that go up and down, not really substantial. And the net is that we have decreased payroll from our projected carry-forward budget by $688,951, and non-payroll decreases of $212,440. We are looking at zeroing out all other accounts net, with the exception of benefits increase, and that we were unable to decrease any further. So the net increase that we are looking for in the Board of Education's budget is 1.68%. And that is after a great deal of deliberation, detail by detail, position by position, program by program from the Board of Education, and that is the budget that we would like to see go to the voters. And have your questions.
I'd like to make a comment about that. When Bill started off his presentation, he talked about meeting with the administration. I think it needs to be understood that the administration did not have to be pushed in these directions. They fully understood the criticality of the situation that we are in. And frankly, I was enthused and overwhelmed by the approach that they were taking. And it was a very serious approach, and we went line by line, and we had a number of workshop meetings to get at this even more, because we know what it is we're dealing with. By and large, these boards, the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, and the Board of Education, have a joint responsibility. And that responsibility is to provide a quality education at a price that we can afford to the children of Bethel. The climate is such, the competitive climate is such for kids getting out of school that is totally alarming. Nothing that I have ever seen. If you think it's going to be easy for adults to find work, if they can't, that's not going to happen, not going to be easy. If you think kids getting out of school that can't afford to go on to college, or may ask their parents to delay things for a couple of years until they can afford to go, there won't be any jobs for them out there. And the whole world is getting more competitive. I don't need to tell you, you can hear it every day on television or read it in the paper about businesses closing. So just where is employment going to come from? It's for the kids in Bethel. Hopefully it will come from the support that we give them and the quality education that we provide. And that's an obligation, a joint obligation that we all have. All you need to do is look at a place like India, where they have more honor students in India than we have total students in this country, or any other, Japan, and the way those kids compete for educational dollars, compete to get into either select high schools or colleges. Those are the employees that our students are going to go up against, and we need to prepare them. If we don't, we're going to have a lot more kids hanging around the Doughboy statue with nothing to do, unemployed, and a lot more people on welfare, and I don't think we can afford that. This town has three things going for it. When I moved here, it was a reasonably priced community because I worked in White Plains. It's a great, fine town with a lot of friendly people and a good place to live. But the biggest reason I moved here, and I believe others who work outside this area, was because I could give my kids the kind of quality education that I believe they needed and that I wanted them to have. And there's, people don't move here because there's a bunch of jobs available. This is a bedroom community by and large. People work in either Hartford or White Plains, and they live here for those three reasons. And primarily because of the quality education that the taxpayers have supported over time. And I urge us, Mr. Roden talked about being aware of the climate that's out there. I urge us not to be dismantling this one thing that Bethel has going for us, because it will have a great impact down the road if you talk about a deteriorating tax base because people just don't find this the place that they want to be.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, Mrs. Jansky,
Yes.
before I ask your indulgence here, this is not about do we believe in education or not believe in education. This is financial reality, fiscal reality that we're facing. So I'd like to keep my questions to the context of the absolute numbers without commenting about opinions. So the questions that you're going to hear from me are going to be very pointed questions about numbers, calculations. Why is this different? Where did that number come from? How did we get to that number? And if the explanations are sound, then we have the making of a proper budget. So on that basis, Mrs. Jansky, at January 9th meeting, Dr. Chesley said to us that you had a report to give us that had in that report $135,000 to $150,000 worth of cuts or savings in this year's budget. 2 months have gone by. We haven't received that.
Are we talking about the new budget or?
Well, I need to do that housekeeping because that's an important fact, because it was said in the meeting on January 9th, and we don't have those numbers. That's important for us to have those numbers.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, I wrote a letter in response to that very point. And as I mentioned in the letter, we will not have that final number until June 30th.
Dr. Chesley said he had $135,000 to $150,000 worth of cuts on January 9th, and that Mrs. Jansky had the list. We don't have the list.
We have a freeze on it this year. We are looking at every single expenditure that comes across our desk. The administrators only send us what they absolutely need to run the schools.
Right.
And based on that, and based on what they thought they could hold back, we felt that in supply-type accounts, we could probably come up with 125 at the end of the year with very careful spending. I did not put a list together. I wasn't asked to put a list together. So, but those are the numbers. That is
Okay.
the estimate that I gave.
Okay.
That is non-payroll.
Right.
There is also payroll. We have not filled positions rapidly when they are vacated, because we also expect to come up with funds at the end of the year that would come from vacancy savings. And we are purposefully not filling some positions rapidly so that we would also generate that.
Right.
It was very clear. Let me
Okay,
finish.
my job is to say to you,
Yes.
what I was told on January 9th,
Okay.
you have those numbers, we need those numbers. If the superintendent of the school system says, you gave us those numbers and you didn't, we need those numbers. That's the only comment I'm making, is that this is fact. We need numbers, we were told you have those, so can you supply those to us, please?
I don't have them with me this evening.
No,
I think-
just
okay.
Wendy Smith, could you please make a note of that? Thank you.
Any other comments from the Board of Finance? Question?
Got a lot of questions.
Mr. Slifkin?
You talk about a 15% health insurance increase. If one of your administrators declines medical benefits or opts out of his or her health care benefits, is that cost paid back to them in wages or salaries?
Yes. If that's according to their contract. It's contractual.
Can you explain that, please, and how much it would be on average for each administrator? Because rough calculations, it's $250,000 that for some reason the Board of Ed gives back to certain people, which is not what is followed on the town side. I'm just trying to understand, Bill.
I only know one contract. Is that $250,000?
No.
I don't think so. I don't know where that $250,000 is coming from.
If you look at the 2008 wages and then you go to box 5 in the Medicare wages, there are significant differences in a lot of the administrators. Significant administrators. Box 5.
From box 1.
From box 1.
The difference would be also what they put in their 403Bs. That would be personal decisions that come out. They are not compensated for not taking the medical.
They are not.
There is a clause. I'll give you the exact answer.
How many people are not, or are compensated for not taking medical?
Currently, 1 for the full value of the Board of Ed cost for the benefits.
Thank you.
And that's in that individual's contract?
Yes.
That's not state mandated, is it?
It's in a contract that's negotiated between the individual and the Board of Education.
And the Board of Education, okay.
The local Board of Education.
Okay.
But since the topic come up, you said there's one full, or is there some with partial?
Yes, and I'll read you the section, and I think there's only one person that takes this right now. In the administrator's contract, administrators may elect not to take the board-offered health insurance plan. Those choosing not to take the plan must prove they have coverage elsewhere, not through the Board of Education, and will be paid the following, subject to all applicable taxes. For someone under single coverage, it's $1,000. For an employee plus 1, it's $2,000, and for family coverage, it's $3,000. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think there's only one person that takes. I believe they're all in the plan, in our insurance plan. But other than that, it would be individual contracts.
So what is the total from the Board of Ed that we're paying out?
$18,299.
Go ahead.
In the total benefits system-wide, I can't come to the number you have. You have $6,578,000, and I've got a difference of $68,000. I went through each section, summary, the object code, benefit system, central system, system-wide, and I can't get that number.
You're looking at the
I'm looking at the
2000
total.
section?
Yeah, 09010.
Page 3?
Page 13.
Page 3. Go to page 3.
Page 3 is $6,647,000.
Right.
Okay. Page 13 is $6,578,000. So I've got a difference there of $68,815. And I can't find it.
686, 129,230, 73,889, and 5,800. Okay, the items that are not on page 13 are unemployment compensation of $60,000, the flexible spending account administrative fee of $3,565, and there is an other, and
Okay.
$5,250.
But then I get even more confused when I look at your page that you gave us is budget changes, and you have a decrease of 68,808 for health benefits.
Yes, the 68,808 is just to call out for you. It's already included in the medical number.
It's included in
It's
the number?
included in the medical number. But it's to call out for you the value of the benefits that will not be given based on the reductions in headcount.
But it's in which number in the plan? It's in the
It's
six.
netted into the 5,647,686. But attached to each reduction in headcount, there may or may not be a related reduction in benefit. So I wanted to show you the reduction of the salary and the reduction of the related benefit. The purpose of this schedule is to show you the change year to year in terms of the reduction, in some years additions and in some years reductions to our accounts.
Well, I'll have to go through the numbers again, because I still have to figure out how you got there, because
Okay.
I haven't gotten there. How many kids we have this year in school? Or you have in this budget? How many students?
We have
3,088, is that correct?
If you go,
We don't have that in this one.
it was in the last one that
We had the last
the first one that you'd gotten had all the enrollment data in the back.
November 1st, 2008, it says 3,088.
See, October 1st, 2008, it's 3104 on page 29 of the
This is
first.
November,
Oh, okay, yeah, we go by October 1 every year. That's what the state uses. Is that October 1 or?
This is November. What did you say October was?
October 1 was, there's 3075, the total number is 3104. 3075 in district, 29 out of district. Total Bethel children that we oversee are 3,104.
That's of 10-1.
That's of 10/1. Because that's the date that the state uses, Phil, for all their comparisons.
And what does the November 1st, that's a month later, what does that represent?
That would be what it actually was on that day.
So it would be a decline of
Well, you said
3,088, that's it.
I'd have to look and see if the in-district or out-of-district are there.
That's from the,
Well, I was going by, I'm going by what was actually filed on our PSIS that goes to the state through SASE, and that is 3104, and our projection for next year is 3079. It is a reduction of 25 students.
yeah, no, I saw that elsewhere here.
Yes.
Reduction, how many?
25.
Does that include the 6 kids that are the teacher's kids getting the tuition? Right? Are they in the head count?
No.
No.
And the policy clearly states that they are not included in the headcount.
In the central office accounts, we had the same question last year, and I got the same question this year.
Okay.
I thought we were going to get it a little differently this year than last year.
Okay. Which page?
Okay, I'm on page 14.
Okay.
I'm trying to understand how you budget the superintendent's salary. That's
Okay.
162,000, 161,000 last year, and he made 197,000 on his W-2.
Okay.
Now, if he's making 197,000, that should be the budgeted number, not 161,000, right?
It is in our budget.
Where is it? I can't find it. I can't find this
I'll take you through.
$31,500.
I'll take you through it. The straight salary shows on his salary line. And for many years, the in lieu of health and the annuity payment are included on the contingency line. That's where they're budgeted.
What line is that?
Well, that has a lot of items in it.
Oh, wait a minute. If you're talking about, well, I see a thing in there, contingency down 2,000%.
But first, let me take you through the
Okay.
actual salary line. The superintendent, we budget for next year And it's the same for some other employees also. We budget what they're making this year, because their increase has to be approved by the Board of Education. So when you look here on page 14, and you see budgeted for this year, the 162,003, and then it goes to next year, 165,717. The actual salary this year is the 165,717. When we had the budget put together last year, the increase was not known because it had not been approved by the Board of Education. So it's always on a year delay. And the increase that the superintendent received was 2.3%. So you see that falling out right on the right-hand side there. So what is budgeted in 09-10 is the amount that the superintendent is making this year.
Okay.
But the superintendent has said that he is not taking an increase. So next year, that will be the number that we see.
Where's the $31,000? What account is that in?
Okay, that's in the salary contingency line.
What page is that?
On page 3, there is a line called contingency.
Which is down 322%.
Yes, because there are many things in that line.
That's what we're trying to find out, what's in that line. What's in contingency? What do you call that?
Contingency has annuity and the in lieu of health. It also has...
For one person or for everybody?
For several people.
Okay.
And it has, let me take you through the rest. It has the value of the administrator give back that the union, the association give back this year of $27,000. It has it has an increase for any non-union employees, and for those that agreed not to take an increase, it has the reduction of that in there. It also has a projected savings for the, normally what we have in there is a projected savings from vacancy turnover. This year, we had not one retirement as of October 1st, as of November 1st, as of a few weeks ago, but we put the early separation package out. So our estimate for the savings from that vacancy turnover are also in that line.
Okay. I asked for transparency.
Yes.
Okay. I see a number here, it's minus $132,000.
Correct.
Okay. And yet, the excess payment of annuities and bonus, whatever it is, of $32,000 is supposedly in that number.
It is.
Okay. We don't know that. We would like to see that in a line item that specifically designates what it is, so we don't have to go on a fishing and hunting trip to find out where that money is.
Okay.
Because I still can't understand how you do this. When you have a minus 132 and you're lumping that in there, it looks like you're trying to hide it. Okay?
I only put it there because that's where it had always been, Jim.
Well, we asked you
and when I
last year
show
to-
things other places, then everybody gets all funny because
Well,
the
we don't.
numbers are going up and down.
We asked you last year to break that out and make it transparent, and I'm reading from your bylaws here,
Okay.
that we, the Board of Finance, basically, at such time, in such manner, and I interpret manner to mean, if we ask you a request for something broken out,
Absolutely.
that you should comply with that request.
Would you like me to give you an analysis of the contingency line?
Yes, I would, and I'd like to see you have a complete plan
Yep, I have.
that has a salary, and if there's some type of annuity payment, whatever you want to call it, next to that line. So we know it ties into that line, and we don't have to go try to find it somewhere.
Yep, I have it tying out exactly, so I can provide that.
Okay, line, same line.
I have it line by line.
Okay.
You're going to give it to us verbally now?
Can I provide it tomorrow? I'll do up a little sheet and give it to everyone, if that's okay?
But what were the other two items over
Okay.
about that one salary we're talking about? You don't have
Mr. Gallagher, if I could make a statement.
Well,
If you're gonna-
answer my question.
If you want it, I'll give it to you now.
Yeah.
Do you want the items?
Yeah, just
Okay.
what they are.
There is an annuity of $19,826.
What was that?
$19,826 for the superintendent.
How much was it?
19,826. In lieu of health, 18,462,
What was the 1986?
annuity,
Sorry, thank you.
This is in lieu of health, 18,646.
18,462.
Should I?
There- Yeah, you know, there are a lot of pieces, and I'd rather give you an explanation. Could I give it to you tomorrow? I mean,
Sure,
absolutely.
yeah,
I'll give it to you
it's
tomorrow
easier.
with
No,
a
I don't
full
want all the
explanation.
whole thing.
Okay.
Just so we have an
Mrs.
idea
Smith?
what you're talking about.
Would you please note that?
Okay, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
I'm making the note too. Okay, very good.
Okay. Ms. Jansky, last year I asked you why you have the assistant superintendent's salary in system-wide and not in the office over there, central office, and you told me, or you told us last year that, you know, you would fix that, or you would do that so we would have a better handle
Well, I
on
think you
everything.
can see the salaries listed,
Well, why isn't it system-wide? I don't understand.
because the function is a system-wide
Is the
function.
superintendent's function system-wide?
Well, the function is, there is an area of curriculum, and all the curriculum accounts are in the one place.
Does the assistant superintendent work out of the central office?
Yes.
Why is that not the cost center for her salary?
To get to what point?
To the point that it's exactly showing who's in the central office and what their salaries are in the central office and what costs are allocated to the central office.
What we did last year,
We asked this last year.
We said that the number of people per head count, at 11.28, I think, or 6, whatever the number is, in central office, the salaries don't match because you've got a salary in curriculum, you've got the facility director over someplace else, yet under central office, you have them carried at head count. And all we were trying to do was get the salaries to match the head count. That's the
Because
sole
the
point.
accounting practice that we follow is the assistant superintendent with her job responsibility. And it's spread across all of the schools from K through 12. So the accounting system says that's where we report.
Explaining where Mr. Rhodes is coming from,
The-
where I'm coming from.
The
Because you
disciplines,
said that last year.
yeah, the disciplines that we have, though, in the Board of Education, it's more the nature of the disciplines. So the associate superintendent is listed in curriculum with all other curriculum-related costs. And that's also the way the committees are broken up for the Board of Ed. So the way we have it mirrors the way our functions are. We have fiscal, we have curriculum, we have facilities. That's what we have.
Could I ask another question on a little bit different direction? It's the 1.68% that Mr. King's presented. Now, that's based on a couple $100,000 to $200,000 in retirements happening. Is that correct?
The estimate that I have in for that right now is around 180.
180,
Just so it's,
And it's also based on the last year's educational cost sharing grant.
that's
That's fine.
that I have in the assumption of flat funding for the
Yeah, well,
governor.
in other words, what we got last year, we'll get this year, is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
And I increased it, Phil, because
By how much again?
I increased it, I think, $90,000,
The ESC grant?
the excess cost.
Oh, the excess cost for the...
The ECS goes to Barry and his accounts
Yeah.
directly.
No, but I mean, say, but your 1.68 is based on that.
Is based on that, with that assumption, yes. It's a flat funding assumption. And that, when the governor flat funds, the costs of all the districts across the state for the placements of students out of district will increase. And the governor's not going to fund that increase. That increase in cost is just going to be spread across all the districts. The appropriation, the dollar amount of the appropriation is going to remain fixed. So therefore, each district will get a lower percentage each of the years that it's flat funded. So I increased it because last year we received more money, and then I projected to next year to flat fund it.
And that's the big unknown.
That's one of the big unknowns.
I mean, for our purposes of Bethel, because we depend on that, it's a huge unknown.
The ECS is a bigger unknown.
That's what I'm saying.
But the excess cost
Yeah.
is within our budget and impacts our budget, positively some years, negatively others.
The DSC grant is in terms of setting the tax rate, and we could pass a 1.68% budget increase for the Board of Education all the way down the line, and then we could find out in June or July that the governor's original 10% decrease is in fact going to take place.
The ECS grant is, and I have a handout for you if you'd like.
Sure.
I have ECS for the last 3 years, and I have it for all the neighboring districts. And I show the impact of ECS on the total cost per student. So you have a total cost per student, and then each district receives X in ECS. And I broke that by student so that you could see the local cost per student. But you can see that ECS for Bethel for 0809 is $8,157,000.
Yeah, but what would that do if we were to get $1 billion less, as the governor basically proposed?
Well, they don't see...
What would that do to us?
ECS is on the revenue side in solutioning the mill rate.
I want to make sure.
Oh, I know that.
But on the spending, what people don't realize is that we just vote for the spending package. So
That's
year over year, it's the spending increase, you know, and the solutioning of the mill rate comes on the revenue side where we get ECS.
But I'm finding if we pass a budget, assuming we're going to get what we got last year, and then in fact we get a month or a week or a day after we pass the budget, we get 10% less as the government originally proposed.
That's right.
That's a serious thing for the town.
Right. But there's always those two numbers. You know, they present the fact that we have a budget that's going forward for the whole town, say, of 1%. That doesn't mean that the taxes go up 1%, because we don't know what the revenue side is. 20% of the revenues to run the town come from outside of property tax. You know, 17% is coming from the state, the other 3% from fees for buildings and everything else. So a lot of times when you hear 1% of a spending increase, you could end up with a 3% tax increase because of lower revenues outside of the tax revenues.
Very well put.
And that is something that we called your attention to back in December, because our revenues, our collection is down. And that's not that people are not just paying their taxes. We do have that. The town of Bethel, in the next few months, is going out for tax sales. We're selling people's houses. And that's as serious as a heart attack.
And as was pointed out in the paper today, the timely article for our standpoint, with the grand list down, as Mr. Karina commented in the paper, if we had the normal increase in the grand list, it would have taken care of your increase in your hospital insurance, if that figure stands. But that's not going to happen this year. We're not going to have any increased revenue because of growth in the grand list. We're actually going to have a decrease in revenue because the grand list has gone down.
With that decrease in revenue, we have that decrease in revenue right now. That's why we called you in here in December and let you know about it and ask you for help.
But the decrease is not only for this year, but for the following.
Next year, it will follow in. So your zero budget, if we all go zero right now, we're behind $700,000 next year. That's what we're going to do to the people of Bethel, if we go zero. So, Mr. Krabus, you were very right. This is a very, very hard time.
I remember hard times
And
when I was growing up.
why do people in India, why is the whole nation of India have more honor students than we have students in America?
because of the focus on education.
That is our mission. That is what this town needs to do. And maybe we should look at cost in India. Because I doubt seriously if they spend as much as us, because they're not as gifted a country. And those are all philosophical things that we're dealing with.
You gave
Let's
us,
get back to the budget here, because India has about 1.2 billion people, and we have 300 million, so that's
Big difference.
there's going to be more honor students, any kind of students there, so.
your cost per pupil here, from 06, 07, we have a Connecticut State Department of Education listing of per pupil expenditures for Bethel and its neighbors as of October 1st, 2008. Bethel spends $12,344 per student. Brookfield, $11,408. Danbury, $11,563. Easton, $13,395. New Fairfield, $10,773. New Milford, $10,852. Newtown, $10,911. Reading, $14,937. And my favorite, Bridgefield, $12,899. So I can see that, according to the state, for a town that ranks 107th in per capita income in the state, we're spending more per student than the surrounding towns who have higher per capita income than Bethel. So we're not cheating education. We're spending a lot on education in this town. And right now, we have a problem. And we can't spend that much on education this year and next year.
Mr. Roden, we have a very fine school system.
Yes, we do.
And we have chosen to fund that school system. We have student populations that they don't have in some of the more affluent towns. We have very good test scores. They're getting better every year.
I agree with you. I don't have an argument with you on that, but I have a concern that we're spending more money than 8 other or 7 other towns. And we're basically looking at a very, very, very difficult situation next year, this budget year. So we're just saying, we're trying to be reasonable people here as well. And it's just that, how much money do we have to spend this year or next year, or into next year's budget? I mean, we have a problem with the budgets.
Well, on the other side, we have also looked very carefully as a Board of Ed as to what programs we're offering and are they worth the money. And we have spent a lot of time doing so. And we think to preserve the quality of the system that we have, this is the budget we're proposing.
I understand.
You're not suggesting that the expenditure per pupil is bad and negative.
No, I'm
It's
suggesting.
very positive.
I'm suggesting it is
If
very
you look at the
positive.
number of graduating seniors going on to college and the schools that they're getting into. If you look at the number of students that are in the special ed program or the number of ESL students that we are dealing with,
Sure.
I think you'll understand that some of that is driven by the population, student population that we have, and by the fact that over time, the taxpayers of this town have decided that that's the kind of education they wanted to provide.
Sure. And that's.
So I would feel very good in that.
Yeah, there's no problem with that, but it's also an indication of how much the taxpayers of this town are sacrificing to maintain a quality education system. And this year we're asking some help because the sacrifice is more difficult than it ever has been. We're not criticizing your budget. We're just saying, listen, it's a problem. We have revenue problems. And I don't know where those numbers are going to fall. And as Mr. Gallagher says, if this drops $500,000 or $1 million on the state contribution, we're in deep trouble. We're in very deep trouble. And this gentleman can tell you what's going to cost us when the new addition in the high school comes on. We don't have any money. That's all we're saying, is please understand that this is a serious situation, and we're not trying to dismantle education. We're trying to get to the best cost structure we can get to, spending the least amount of money to get the best education we can. Maybe it's what you have, maybe it's a little less. I don't know yet. And that's up to the taxpayer.
That's where we're coming from as well.
I'd like to take you further in that analysis, and it relates also to Mr. Gallagher bringing up ECS. ECS comes out of the amount of state taxes that are paid. And each district, each local district, the 169 school districts in the state of Connecticut, each receive money from the state to help offset the costs of education. And that's what ECS is, just so that everybody understands what that is. It also helps to equalize, not perfectly, but it helps to equalize needs versus what a town is able to spend. So on this analysis, and it would be very similar for the 07-08. In those same towns, you can see that Bethel receives, as we spoke before, in 08-09, $8,157,000. New Fairfield receives almost half that, $4,414,000. So some of that is because we are D, and a lot of the districts here, I can tell you Bethel is D, Brookfield is B, Danbury, I'm not sure what's Danbury, H, okay. Easton is B or A? A. New Fairfield is B, New Milford is D, so New Milford's very similar to us. Newtown is a B, Reading is an A, and Ridgefield is an A. On the flip side, the State Department of Education and the state of Connecticut, the way they determine what DERG you're in is they use indicators of educational need. And so if you take a little time, not tonight, but if you take some time to look at what's driving where Bethel stands, it jumps off the page at you, it really does. And because we are D, and I'll use Newtown as an example, Newtown receives back from state dollars $4,309,000, whereas Bethel again receives $8,157,000 this year. Some of that helps to equalize the local cost to the taxpayer, because you would say, if we are a lower per capita income town, how can we pay more for a school system? And the state recognizes that, and this formula, though not perfect, works towards equalizing that. Understanding clearly that a town with a lower per capita income really can't afford on its own, out of local tax dollars, to pay even more for a school system that probably has even greater needs. If I use Newtown versus Bethel, students eligible for free and reduced lunch, Bethel 8.3%, Newtown 2.6%. That's a key indicator of poverty level. So that's where the ECS, so that you start to understand the whole puzzle. That's the purpose, somewhat, of ECS. Because the state clearly recognizes that a town with greater needs and lower per capita income needs some type of equalization in funding.
I'll say something, Terry, though, because what you get back to, though, is because I've dealt with this so many years.
Yeah.
The bottom line is, before ECS, how much do we pay per student so that we are equalized? Okay, Ridgefield pays, say, or New Fairfield, $12,000.
Right.
We pay, $13,000.
Right.
Well, the bottom line with ECS is, we should be both paying $12,000 so that additional monies from ECS goes to lower the tax burden on the people of Bethel because they are less likely able to pay. So if you start to compare yourself in jacking up dollars per student so that you level yourself because of ECS, then you have a town like Bethel who cannot paying the same when it comes to taxes as a town like Ridgefield. So look at the other way.
I'd like to also look at it in a different way. I think the ECS formula outlines the criteria that impacts education, and I think it's a town with less resources, our needs tend to be higher on a per student basis because of the lower resources. And it all goes hand in hand, and it's not unusual from my view that we would spend more per student to get the same quality or the best quality we can as a more affluent town. I think that's a different way to look at it.
But another way of looking at it is this, and this is where the town of Bethel deserves accolades, is the ECS formula, as Mr. Jancic said, is designed to even the playing field. But if you have a town like Bethel that goes above and beyond in terms of per pupil spending, if we spent per pupil the same as our neighbors, Brookfield, Newtown, and New Fairfield, who we used to be in the same ERG with, our budget would be anywhere from $2 to $4 million less every year. So it's quite an admirable thing that what we do in this town. Because the state recognizes we're a poor town, the poorest town in northern Fairfield County. And yet we spend over and above, we're almost in the same category as Richfield for pupil spending, yet our per capita income is less. I mean, we deserve a big pat in the back for what the taxpayers do in this town.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think
And Mr. Kingston, keep in mind exactly what you two are saying. We are per capita a poor town.
that's correct.
You are one part of a town, and this board has to worry about a whole town. And like I said, we're selling people's houses now.
Well,
We're asking for help.
and we are providing that help to the best of our ability, consistent with keeping our educational standards high. And that is the budget. That's where we came from, and that's the budget we're presenting to
As
you.
Mr. Roden said at the beginning of this is not about us against you, you against us, or anything else. This is about a whole town, and it's about a whole town having to be held together. And the least of us has to be taken care of as well as the best of us. And that's my job.
No question
And I
about
will
it.
promise you this, I will do my job.
I have no doubt of it, Mr. Burke. And we will do our jobs to the best of our ability, and our jobs are with the taxpayer in mind to provide an education that this town can be proud of for our students. And that's where we're coming from. We are not in the business of dismantling our school system. I don't care what the surrounding economic situation is. We are not going to willingly dismantle our school system.